Welcome to the October 14th meeting of the Franklin Board of Education. Our first order of business tonight will be administering the oath of office to our newest school board member, Ms. Persky. And Ms. Larson will administer the oath. Item 2, the meeting has been properly posted. Mr. Lewis is excused from tonight's meeting. Ms. Larson, can we have a roll call?
Yes. Mrs. Witkowski?
Here.
Mr. Alexandrovich?
Here.
Mr. Sprague?
Here.
Mrs. Sapersky?
Here.
Mr. Gamble?
Here.
We are all present.
Thank you. Would you join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Witkowski, second by Mr. Sprague. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Community comment. Item 5, participants under this agenda item must limit their statements to 3 minutes with a maximum of 15 minutes for any and all comment. If a community comment is related to an agenda item, the board may respond to that comment either at the end of community comment session or during the discussion of that agenda item. The board may not discuss a comment or question that does not relate to an agenda item per Board Policy Administrative Rules 8300. Would anyone like to make a community comment? Please step forward and state your name and address.
My name is Mary Yank, address 5731 West Cascade Drive.
Yeah, could you just please pull it real close to you with the masks? It's really hard to hear. You can pull it real close. There you go.
That's good? Yeah. While I realize that you don't really need a rebuttal witness to the gentleman that spoke a couple of weeks ago, I just wanted, I guess, to offer my own personal views. I know he had mentioned that there were no children that we know of or students that have perished because of this virus. And while he's absolutely correct in that, I think we certainly do not know the potential long-term effects of even a mild case with children or adults. So I think we do need to be extremely cautious in being too cavalier about kids getting this virus. I also think he referenced things having flattened the curve, but working in the hospital right now, we're back to no visitors, and everything that I hear is that this virus is exploding across Wisconsin. Deaths are up, cases are up, percentages are up. We have not flattened the curve, as he might have alluded to. I think the most important thing that I want to rebut is the lack of leadership by this board. I think you have done a tremendous job. I cannot even imagine the competing voices and the competing opinions and the competing expectations that you've had to deal with since March. And whether you even all agreed or not, you came up with what I feel is an extraordinary plan. The protocols, the policies, the practices that you have in place, the ongoing communication, I think has shown extraordinary leadership. I feel very comfortable sending my kids to school, and I have an underlying medical condition, as does my husband, that would make getting this virus very problematic. And I feel comfortable sending my kids to school every day because I feel as though you're being extremely vigilant. I think the communication is fantastic. And I just wanted to bring that, having attended many board meetings, I know how much time and how much effort and how much diligence everyone has contributed to making this plan work. And I think the options for virtual and in-person were tremendous. So I just, like I said, wanted to offer a little bit of a different perspective from the gentleman a couple of weeks ago. So thank you so much for all your hard work. I'm truly grateful.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to comment? Would anyone else like to comment? Would anyone else like to comment? Hearing none, we'll close the community comment session. Item 6, I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Witkowski,
Second.
second by Mr. Alexandrovich. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 7, school board announcements. Are there any announcements from the members?
I guess I'll just make a couple of announcements from Pleasant View School. They are going to be holding their virtual parent-teacher conferences tomorrow and next Tuesday. They are also engaging in a food drive from October 19th to the 23rd. And on October 17th, Southbrook Church will have a drive-through trick-or-treating event from 11 a.m. to 12 noon.
Okay. Any other member comments? Okay. Item 8, school board calendar. There'll be a regular Board of Education meeting on Wednesday, October 28th, here in the ECC at 6 p.m. And there'll be a regular Board of Education meeting on Wednesday, November 11th, here in the ECC at 6 p.m. Item 9, District Administrator update from Dr. Miller.
Good evening. Thank you, Mrs. Yank, for your kind comments. They're greatly appreciated. Thank you. I'd also like to welcome Ms. Sapersky to the board. We had an opportunity to meet with Ms. Sapersky today, Mr. Gamble and I, and went over some things related to being a board member, and she already has it down pat. She, of course, has attended a number of meetings already, so we're really looking forward to working with you. So it's hard to believe, but we're finishing our 7th week of school, and I know when school started, I thought, you know, if we just get to school for a few weeks and we build some relationships and kids have to go back home, at least they know who we are. But here we are 7 weeks in, and things are going very well. Despite the reality of what you just heard, things in the general community and in the counties throughout the state of Wisconsin, things are not going well. But I am very proud of the fact that things are going well in our district. Last Friday, if you saw our metrics, we had 11 cases of COVID, student cases of COVID in the district. So with over like 3,800 students, that's a small number of students. We also saw in the last week and in this week fewer students that actually needed to be quarantined. So those numbers are down as well. And I'd like to thank our parents for that because they're doing a really good job of keeping their children home with any signs or symptoms. And when they're home, they're not exposing other children within that 2-day period, and then those children aren't quarantined. So we're actually doing very, very well. This week, due to the rise in cases of COVID in Franklin and throughout the state, I partnered with Ms. Courtney Day from the Franklin Health Department, and we've drafted a letter that will go to all residents of the Franklin community, really just asking people to follow the guidelines with regard to gatherings so that they're not hosting birthday parties or sleepovers or things that are going to make it difficult for us to continue to have school, or of course that will continue to spread COVID. We are very soon planning to survey our parents who have their students at the high school and the middle school at home learning virtually to ask them now if they are planning to return at second semester. And it's important that we get this information sooner than later because of the implications regarding staffing, scheduling, and busing. So that information is going to go out soon. With regard to our elementary students, it will go out a bit later because those students would not return if parents chose to send them back until March. So despite everything, we're still very excited about homecoming. Our homecoming game will be on October 23rd at the high school. Mr. Hine and the team there have been working hard to make it as special as it could possibly be. There's a week planned where students will dress up in different themed costumes, if you will. I wouldn't really call them costumes, but there's different days, spirit days, if you will. The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to figure out how we can allow 100 of our senior students to be present at the game. We have done the math, basically, and we can allow for that number of students to be there to view the game within 6 feet of each other wearing a mask. So we're going to do our best to give that opportunity to our seniors. On September 30th, Ms. Cody and Mr. Volo and I met with students who are members of an outside organization called FREE, Franklin for Racial Equity and Empowerment. We had a productive conversation, and we look forward to continuing to work with these students and other students in our multicultural club to continue to partner on our work around equity. And I think that was actually my last item, so there's no more and. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item 10, reports, presentations, and other school board business. First up is our at-risk report from Ms. Sorg and Mrs. Jewell.
Before they begin, I just wanted to thank both of them for being here this evening. I know many of you who have been on the school board for several years are used to seeing Dr. Dwyer present this information. And last year when Ms. Sorge came on board with us as a school social worker, we took a look at all of the services that we were providing and looking more specifically at roles and really the best fit in terms of strength and the work that they're doing. So Ms. Sorge took over then as the Children at-Risk Coordinator for the district. So that's why she's here this evening. And then Ms. Jewell obviously supports the work of student services very closely. So just wanted to thank them for being here tonight.
Hi, hello. So the purpose of the at-risk report is to define the criteria for children at risk of not graduating high school and then identify who those students are in our district. Then this report also outlines the programs and services that we offer to students and what we're going to do to get them back on track so that they're no longer at risk or they're graduating with their cohort. And then lastly, this report also contains information regarding the at-risk trends from previous years and then the evaluation of program effectiveness. So as defined by the Wisconsin legislature, a child at risk fits that criteria or is at risk if they fit different criteria. So the first one is if they're a dropout, it's an automatic at-risk student. And then the second one is that they have to fit 2 or more criteria, and those criteria are them being 1 or more years behind their age group in number of credits attained, 2 or more years behind their age group in basic skill level, habitual truants, teenage parents, adjudicated delinquents, and then also 8th grade pupils who meet either being below basic level among their peers or students who have failed to be promoted to 9th grade. So looking at our data summary for the 2020-21 school year, this is based on data from 2019-20 school year. So we have 24 students statutorily at risk who meet 2 or more criteria. And then we also have 2 students that did not graduate last year and did not re-enroll at Franklin this year. So that puts us at a total of 26 students at risk for the 2020-2021 school year. 5 of those 26 students are students that continue to be on the at-risk list from previous years. So for each student who's identified as at risk, the school's student service team and administrators, along with the student and a parent, will have a meeting to create an intervention plan that can improve that student's standing. And these intervention plans are individualized to each student. So setting goals based on whatever the barriers that student might be experiencing are. As well as that, we implement things like student service support in general, so whether it's like crisis intervention, meeting with families regularly, daily or weekly check-ins with students. We also do goal settings, modified schedules, project-based learning. And then we also have additional instruction time, and that was built into our school schedule as gold block. So this year, unfortunately, we do not have a gold block anymore because we had to change some things around COVID-19 procedures in the building. But previously, and where this data comes from, looking at last year, there was a gold block offered. And then we also have individualized education plans. 3 students who are currently at risk do have an IEP. And then lastly, we have our alternative education options. So currently, we have 7 students attending Connects Learning Center, 2 students in Envision Academy, and 1 student who is doing a program through MATC. So if you look at the data and see 26 on there, it is an increase from what has been reported in the past. And this could be due to a variety of reasons, but the major ones that we have kind of identified the major reasons pertain to the way that we looked at the data and having to kind of modify some of our data criteria. So this year we had to change the parameters around 2 different things, and one of those was looking at summative assessment results. We did not have summative test results from last school year, so we couldn't use that as an identifying point. And then the other thing we had to do was we expanded the parameters of the truancy data, and this was for a couple of reasons. The first was that we didn't have that summative test result data, so we wanted to look at something else and make sure that we weren't missing any students. So previously, students' attendance was only noted in the at-risk report if they had had a 5-day truancy meeting. So only students who had the meeting were included. This year, we decided to look at all students who had that 5 or more unexcused absences. So by expanding that, we gathered a couple more students that way. But I think that expanding our scope allows us also to support more students and catch those students that maybe previously might have fallen through the cracks, and be able to catch them soon enough that we can hopefully get them off the at-risk list by next year, get them graduated. Does anyone have any questions, or Mr. Woody, anything to add?
Question. So of the 2 that didn't graduate, were they in the at-risk report a year ago?
I believe one of them was.
Well, one wasn't, so we missed one last year.
Well, last year that student was not at risk of not graduating at the time, like, because we would have pulled the data from the prior year. So that student, sorry, I think I'm talking loud enough, but that student would have been on track to graduate, but then through the process of last year, they were not. So that was kind of extenuating circumstances that led that student not to engage in school and ultimately not be able to graduate due to credits. That student going into last year was not credit deficient.
Okay. Also, I know you have a great list of alternate programs and services, and clearly that's not just for these 26 students. There's a whole array of students that attend those programs, but they're not at risk of not graduating.
Correct, not according to the statute. So they might not be on track to graduate, but they don't meet 2 or more of those criteria. So unless they were a dropout, that's the only criteria, that's a single criteria. So those students might be credit deficient and not on track to graduate, but if they don't have another criteria, they wouldn't be on this report.
So if we had modified the way we're looking at the data, do we know how many students there would have been at risk last year? I mean, we're saying that's the reason that there's more. Do we know that by data, or are we guessing?
I guess it's hard to say. We'd have to go back to the data from last year to try to pull specifically like the attendance. So the way that our habitual truancy process works is that if you have 5 days of unexcused absences, you get a meeting. But we do track habitual truancy in terms of parent excused absences as well. So we look at how many days has a parent excused, have they gone beyond their 10-day maximum? And then those students are also considered habitually truant. So we decided to increase the scope and look at all of the students on that list because even though they might have parent excused absence, we know that attendance in school affects performance on things like those summative assessments like the ACT, grades, like all of those things, earning credits. So, I mean, there's not a direct correlation. No, we don't know that with certainty, but it's likely. So.
Does any of this have anything to do with COVID and what happened in the spring?
Again, hard to know if there's a direct link. We did have some students who struggled to engage. So there is the potential that some students did fail more classes in the spring and might have come onto our report as being more than a year behind in terms of credits. So that's probably the main area, again, that students would have been added to that report was if they didn't engage and they didn't earn as many credits as maybe they were on track to prior to the stay at home, then they might have showed up on the report.
The report does say habitual truants as defined by state statute, but you modified it. I didn't look at state statute, but I guess wondering how you were able to expand your interpretation of statute, or?
Well, so they're still considered habitually truant as long as they reach that 10-day mark even of parent excused and go over it. So we just didn't go based on kids who had only had a meeting. We went on any of those kids who had hit that mark.
Anyone else? Okay. I'm looking for a motion to approve the at-risk report as presented.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Larson,
Second.
second by Ms. Witkowski. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item B, our mental health report from Ms. Cody.
It's a big night for student services here. So at this time, I'd like to invite Ms. Kristen Lorino and Ms. Catherine Reed up to the table. They are actually presenting this evening as well. So again, I'm proud to introduce 2 more members of the Student Services team. Ms. Kristen Lorino, again, she is the Special Education and Mental Health Coordinator for the district. This is her 2nd year in the position. And then Ms. Catherine Reed is our School Counseling System Specialist, and she's been with the district for 17 years, so quite a long time with us. They both have been leaders in this area and very passionate about the work that we've done to really address the needs, the mental health needs and well-being of our students and staff here in Franklin over the course of the last several years. So I did invite them here again tonight to speak to several of the highlights of the work that was identified in the report. So Franklin Public Schools, we have definitely made significant progress in our ability to support the well-being of our students. Our school-based mental health services include practices at 3 different levels. We really look at the universal support, so the proactive steps that we put in place to meet the needs of all of our learners, and that also addresses students understanding their own individual competencies in the areas of social and emotional learning, and it really focuses on our school climate and school culture. So we look at universal strategies. We also look at selected strategies to really support the needs of students who show us that they have some level of needs, speaking a little bit to some of those students who are identified as at risk or with some mild mental health challenges. And then we also work to provide services for students who need more intensive support. So Kristen and Catherine will be, again, breaking down more of the detailed work in each one of these areas. So I'm going to turn it over at this time to Ms. Reed to speak to the universal strategies.
Good evening, everyone. Did that work?
Just a little closer if you can.
Oh, how's this? Okay, I will try to speak a little louder. So I will be speaking to some of the universal strategies that have been implemented by the district and that the district is working on to support student resilience so that students can come to school ready to learn and work together. To do that, we've begun to implement and bring about in every classroom social and emotional learning as a universal strategy to allow students to be ready for their learning. That involves structures that promote positive relationships between teachers and students, between students and their peers, and it includes creating a climate of safety and belonging as a foundation for social and emotional learning. And that leads to opportunities as well to teach students the skills that we all need in order to work effectively with each other. Social and emotional learning is a process, and that leads to all of us being able to manage our emotions, set goals for ourselves, feel and demonstrate empathy for others, maintain positive relationships, and make sound decisions in our lives. These are all things that are really important for students to be able to learn, but eventually to be able to function as adults in the world. So they're really important as students are in school and beyond. The district has taken multiple approaches for building these conditions for social and emotional learning, including solid professional development for our staff in learning a framework for social and emotional learning, understanding what the competencies are that we're actually trying to build in students, and effective practices that build those competencies in students and create those conditions for them to be successful in their learning and in life. We have been working with specific teaching practices, which I believe the board has experienced in the past in the form of welcoming activities and optimistic closures, engaging ways of learning that build student voice into our learning process, and provide opportunities for students to actually practice skills. We've worked toward looking for ways within our teaching and learning that social and emotional skills are integrated, where things happen naturally as students are learning. And we've begun to take a look at last year what kinds of resources would be appropriate for explicit teaching of social and emotional skills. At the beginning of this year, as part of our reopening process for students, we really did recognize that we were all dealing with something very different, and the needs might be very unique and pronounced in our students for a sense of well-being. So additional extra efforts were made to provide those conditions for students to experience more reassurance, to lead to greater sense of well-being, belonging, safety, and comfort really for students to come back to school or to be working virtually. So the beginning of the school year, we provided additional resources to teachers to work with their students in the form of daily community circles at the elementary level, community circles at the middle school level, and in addition to that, specific lessons that engage students in some practices that would help them feel more at ease at school or in their virtual learning environments. An example of that is a lesson on Today I Need, where students engaged in identifying what kinds of things would help them feel comfortable and help them learn today. And I was talking with Dr. Mowbray, our principal at Southwood Glen, about a teacher who said now every day after recess, her students come in, and if there is an issue on the playground, they use the Today I Need process to identify what the problem is and work through some problem solving. So these are lessons that continue and that students actually begin to use themselves. That's very reassuring. In addition to lessons at the middle school and elementary school, we also provided advisory lessons at the high school that are appropriate for high school level students to begin to re-enter school and virtual learning to be comfortable with each other. This year we've also identified additional resources for that explicit teaching of social and emotional learning through a program called Second Step. Second Step has multiple themes that align with our models for social and emotional learning, including, I didn't write my notes down, but there are several areas that align with those 5 competency areas of self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and decision-making, positive decision-making. So we're allowing our K through 8 teachers to provide those lessons with their students as part of an ongoing effort to give them those explicit opportunities to practice. And then an important aspect of the social and emotional learning approach has been working with our adults, cultivating their own capacity to understand what are the skills that we all need to work and learn together well, and building their capacity to engage with students around those social and emotional skills through our professional development, modeling of those skills in our meetings, and engaging with adults in professional development around those 3 signature practices and the other important components of social and emotional learning. And I can turn it over to Kristen to talk about some additional universal approaches.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear? So some of the pieces that I will be highlighting for you, some other work that we have done to meet the social, emotional, and mental health needs of our students really are complementary to the universal, our entire approach to meeting students' needs and really fostering their well-being. So these next pieces that I'll discuss are really not separate or different. They are embedded in the work that Ms. Reed just described. So another component of our universal approach to meeting the needs of students is some ongoing professional development that all of our staff has engaged in building what's called trauma-sensitive schools. So there has been some ongoing professional development provided by student services staff, including our school psychologists, our school counselors, and our school social workers within each building through multiple sessions to really help them develop an understanding of the adverse like the prevalence of the adverse childhood experiences that our students and our kids experiences, understanding how that trauma can really impact the neurology and brain development of our students, and then really developing an understanding of how we can differently approach our students based on that expanded knowledge base about trauma and adverse experiences. So through that training, staff have really developed an understanding to create safe learning environments for our students, which directly impacts and helps us develop those environments for social and emotional learning. Another exciting opportunity that we have been able to offer our staff and community members, those who serve our students, has been to provide youth mental health first aid training. Myself, as well as a school social worker and a school psychologist within the district, went through some pretty comprehensive training in the spring of 2019 to become certified instructors in youth mental health first aid. So when you hear of first aid, you think of physical first aid, and youth mental health first aid is intended to parallel how we train people in physical first aid response to addressing the mental health needs of our students. So the course that was offered to staff and community members last year was an 8-hour structure, so it was a pretty intensive course, and staff left there certified as youth mental health first aiders. And so what that means is they left that training with the knowledge and increased ability to recognize when youth are experiencing mental health challenges. They also left there with an understanding of typical development of adolescence. But then they also learned skills to intervene early, as well as respond to crises that students may be experiencing. So similarly to how you think of people are trained in first aid to recognize, say, signs and symptoms of a heart attack, intervene until they can call 911 and first help arrives, that's what youth mental health first aid is intended to provide a framework for that, for mental health. So we had the opportunity to train all of our administrators, all of our student services staff, as well as 43 additional staff members, and that included general education teachers, special education teachers, educational assistants, office staff, among others. We had a training scheduled in spring as well that had to be canceled due to COVID. But we also, what is not mentioned in here, is we did have the opportunity to train some of our police departments, some police and fire department people, our volition members, as well as some kids club staff. So we're really trying to equip the adults in our community to recognize and respond to the mental health needs of our students. So due to the success of the training last year, that is something we want to continue to offer. Youth mental health first aid as a system has responded to the pandemic and the need for delivering instruction in different formats. So we are undergoing training, us three district trainers are undergoing training to be able to deliver this course in multiple formats, so we can continue with a face-to-face course. We can do a blended option where participants would engage in a 2-hour self-paced course and then an in-person session with us, or they can engage in the 2-hour self-paced course and then engage in a virtual Zoom meeting with us. So that is something that we will continue to provide. I'm going to pass them on.
Thank you. So along with these universal approaches with our staff, we also are educating our students to be knowledgeable and prepared for signs of suicide through explicit instruction in 7th grade and again in 9th grade, and then again at some point in 11th or 12th grade through the health curriculum. Students are learning about what to look for in themselves or in their peers or others in their environment, and to strengthen their ability to be sound communicators when they do encounter those symptoms or signs, to be able to know how to seek out help, and to also know what's typical and normal developing kinds of behavior that is not suicidal, so that we can develop their capacity to be part of this community of people that can help support each other. So that explicit teaching for students happens again in 7th grade, 9th grade, and we continue to look for additional ways to build into that resilience on a broad scale with our students.
And then, as Ms. Cody mentioned, we really want to take this we're taking this universal approach to meeting students' needs, but we do know that there are additional students that will need something more and need a continuum of supports to meet their needs and help them achieve academic and life success. So something that we are also making significant progress on as a district is really how we're approaching providing that continuum of supports to students. So right now, we do respond, as you heard, I think in the at-risk report, we respond pretty significantly when we recognize a need and we need to plan around a student and provide interventions and evaluate those outcomes. What we are working to do is to make that process more systematic and more proactive rather than reactive. So we have made progress with that continuum of supports by working to establish what's called a mental health referral pathway, which is really a framework that was developed by the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction that we are adapting to really help streamline how we are identifying students in need, planning interventions for them, and monitoring their progress. To date, we have made progress in really identifying indicators, like strong data points that would help us proactively, again, identify who those students are. So we're looking at things like unexcused absences, health room visits, office discipline referrals, among a variety of other information in a systematic manner. So for example, looking at that data 3 or 4 times a year, then identifying students in need, planning their interventions, and then progress monitoring them. In addition, our next steps really, so we have made a lot of progress with identifying those indicators as well as a multitude of interventions that our student services and other staff can provide. Our next steps are really to provide the structure, as I mentioned, to have those meetings in a proactive manner. Right now, we don't have scheduled, data sessions necessarily 3 times per year and follow-up systematic meetings to monitor progress of interventions. And last but certainly not least, something that was big news within our district and is a critical part of that referral pathway is making community resources and making other mental health supports available to our students and families beyond what we can provide within the walls or within school. So as you know, last year we established a partnership with Clinical Psychology Associates, and we now provide on-site mental health counseling services within our buildings. We started with counselors at Countrydale, Pleasant View, Fort, and Franklin High School, and in January we were able to add an additional location at Forest Park Middle School. We started out with 2 therapists who are serving our students and families, and due to the high, as you can see in our chart, the number of families and students that have accessed the services, there's been a significant great response, and we now have 4 therapists through clinical psychology that are serving our students, and we are constantly evaluating that referral process and to make sure that we can manage those numbers, and that's when students and families reach out to the clinics, they are seen in a very timely manner. So as you can see below, we've had 102 students to date who have developed a therapeutic relationship with one of the counselors within those buildings. And we still have 66 ongoing partnerships, and probably on a daily basis, additional families are reaching out to access that support. The clinical psychology associate therapists have indicated that the profound impact being in the school has had on the ability of families and students to access those services. Typically in a community site, they report there is a significant no-show rate of students and families within the school building. That doesn't happen because the student is able to go right to their therapy session within their school day. Some other additional benefits has been the collaboration we've been able to have among our staff and the clinical psychology associates therapists. So they've been able to share resources with parental consent, share what's working in a therapeutic relationship for a student, and that has greatly impacted a variety of ways we can serve students within their 504 IEP informal plans, and has contributed to the professional growth of our staff of understanding mental health needs of students. So we plan to continue to strengthen that relationship and continue to grow it and continue that strong collaboration. Questions?
Yes, one question. I appreciate your, your focus on universal words, and just kind of programs. Have you reached out to the public health department? Because, mental health is a community issue, and mental health has a stigma attached to it. Your work seems to indicate that the next generation will be much more comfortable talking about these things. But have you, when you say universal, do you have to wait till these kids become adults, or is there any way you can offer or try to expand, since we're already working with public health for COVID, and reach out and, I don't know, have you offered first aid, mental health first aid? You mentioned community members could attend that, but I don't recall.
I don't know that we have explicitly partnered with the health department in regards to the work that we mentioned tonight. That is a training, the youth mental health first aid training is absolutely something that could be offered to Franklin Health Department staff members. Yep.
So there is a student wellness committee that is staffed by our school nurses and folks from Fayette and health departments, teachers, administrators from around the district. And now they've also incorporated our public health and some community members as well to see how we can grow those partnerships and be working on the same page for the same team. So I expect that that will be a focus of those meetings this year.
It's good news. Thank you. One other follow-up?
Okay.
Sorry. So you're doing all this training, but we have new teachers that come into the district. How do you keep it consistent? They're all say the same things or know the same things.
I can speak to the trauma-sensitive school training. So when we first established that professional development for staff, the following year, we did create a presentation that had a voiceover to go through some of that foundations of the understanding of traumatic experiences. And then the student services staff last year led some follow-up sessions with new staff within the buildings to help them process the information and apply it. Then this year, I think what I forgot to mention, but is in the report, is we did another refresher with all staff during our pre-session to help, again, reestablish the foundation of that learning and then build on that learning to what was applicable to some of the events of 2020 as our students re-entered school. So as far as some of the trauma-sensitive school piece, we have done that. Youth mental health first aid and some of these other trainings are ongoing offerings. I'm not sure if you can speak to the universal social emotional.
Social and emotional learning continues to be a priority in the district as far as the professional development. So during pre-session and in all 5, I think, professional development sessions this year, the focus will be on intentional practices that support universal social and emotional learning for students, and that includes regrounding in the 3 signature practices, et cetera. So I think we catch during the professional development, and we catch up our new staff to some of those practices so that they can be participating at the same level.
So when we hire staff, do they ever come in with that kind of experience? Or are these like micro certifications that they could come in knowing about these different things? Or we assume that their license is just to teach and not a... Homegrown, okay.
And we have talked, Ms. Ellihausen and Dr. Reuter and I have spoken to about, what do our new staff members need when they come on board in order to, continue to provide the level of services and interactions, that our students need. So when you think about SEL and even the work that we've been doing around equity, we're building modules for new staff members to engage in that learning. And then it's also a consideration, like for our new teacher onboarding as well. So because we want to obviously maintain, again, that level of service for our students. And as we continue to go deeper with our practices, yes, those new people have got to, get up to speed fairly quickly. So it's also part of the mentoring as well.
So, thank you.
And with our goal to develop those consistent that K-12 referral pathway that I mentioned, The goal of that is to have a very systematic process where all staff have a product and they are aware of who they go to when there's concern. What are some of our universal supports and targeted supports available? So the outcome of this work too would be a product that we would be able to reference and refer staff to and help guide them in that.
Anyone else? Thank you. That was very informative.
So before Ms. Reed steps away, can I just, I'd like to thank her publicly. She, like I mentioned earlier, is it 17 years, Catherine, is that right? Her 17th year. I worked with her at Forest Park when she first started. I believe I was part of the hiring team, so I take a little credit. And I know Dr. Cohn worked very closely with her at the high school as well, but she is leaving us to go on to a position impacting more districts, like kind of coaching at the state level. And I just want to thank her publicly for the work that she's done on behalf of the students and staff here in Franklin. She's impacted so many students and staff members over the years, and she was integral in making this happen for the district. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. And item C, 2020-21 Employee Handbook Updates from Ms. Ellihausen.
Good evening. At the July board meeting, I was requested to come forward in the fall with the changes to the handbook so that you could certainly preview those before they go out to staff. So in your package, you have the full handbook and you have a summary document of the changes. So I'll just talk briefly about the changes and see certainly if you have any questions related to those changes. In the handbook, you'll see the Title IX statement. As you know, you approved the Title IX policy in conjunction with all the required legal changes in the spring. That brings about multiple renditions of how we make sure our staff are aware of their responsibilities as they relate to Title IX. And so the required statement is in the handbook in order for employees to see it there, as well as on our webpage, as well as in policy. The next section is brought forth into the handbook really to help provide direction and support to our instructional staff that sometimes encounter in classrooms, either intentionally planned through the curriculum or unplanned, as questions arise from our students around how to handle controversial issues and the expectations we have as a system to help set those guidelines for them and support them in that work. So that section is a new section to the handbook to again help bring that forth. Yes, Linda?
How often is this something that's coming up more often, that we felt the need to address this?
It comes up. It is oftentimes more escalated during an election around the political environment. And certainly in our world today, we also have aspects of the social environment that we want to be able to address. This language isn't that we don't address them. It's how we address them that matters when we engage in those discussions with students.
I guess when you have that one reference document, it came back with another 9 points that you have to consider as a teacher, and one of them was, letting the parents know in advance. Is that?
If we need to, certainly, yeah. As part of the curriculum, there are often times that they are going to be discussed, and we want to be as transparent as we possibly can with our parents in order to help support that facilitation of the dialogue around those issues.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. The next section is really in the post-employment benefits, and particularly for our non-certified staff. There was no required notice, and in eligibility for the benefits, we wanted to set a required notice. We certainly have that with our teaching staff, and so this is a 60-day notice for all non-certified staff. And then, as you would expect, the last catch-all document that goes in the handbook is around the pandemic and the expectations to abide by the rules that we have set forth during the pandemic, like wearing our masks like we are today, noticing us when they're ill, things of that nature that are all linked out in the handbook, but would make this, or excuse me, on the website and through other documents. But if we put them all into the handbook, it would become far more unwieldy than it currently is. Those are the major changes to the handbook. There's nothing more than those 4 listed. So if you have any other questions, I'd certainly answer them related to the changes.
No questions? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Item D, District Administrator Goals from Dr. Miller.
Okay, just have a few comments. The document, of course, is in the packet. So I'm pleased to share with you tonight my goals for the 2020-21 school year. As I thought about my goals and what's important to Franklin Public Schools to become a better place to learn, better place to work, and part of a better community, in the back of my mind, I kept thinking what I've been thinking for the last 7 months. Never in my entire career has it ever crossed my mind that we'd be trying to protect children from a pandemic. Never would I have expected education, as I've known it for so many years, to change so rapidly into something new. And never would I have predicted that I would walk through schools and classrooms and see everyone wearing a mask as naturally as if they've done it all along. This year I chose a theme to support our goal of getting better. Each year I choose a theme. Last year our theme was Know Your Impact, Know You Are Better. This year I was inspired by the many decals we have in our schools that say, please stand here. I decided that stand here and know we are better would be a good theme for us, because I know that no matter where we stand with our students, if it's in person or virtually, we're going to get better. The goals and strategies you've been provided do focus on COVID-19, and my role, more importantly, is to ensure during these unprecedented times in history of education that we provide the very best learning experiences to all students. Our coherence plan is now in its 3rd year, and while a lack of achievement data due to COVID-19 may make it difficult to know if we've achieved all of our goals, we are confident that the excellent professional development and sound action plans we have in place will positively influence student achievement. We also intend to continue to move forward in engaging all of our employees in our equity learning and development of our equity non-negotiables this year. This will have to be done virtually, but we know we can do this, and we know we can do it well. We will continue to lead our students in their growth and development in social emotional learning to ensure that they have the skills and support they need to be successful during a time that none of us have experienced as a child. Becoming a better place to work in the context of COVID-19 has new meaning. We must work hard to ensure that our staff has their questions answered regarding how we were keeping them safe at work. We must also recognize how challenging this work is, and we have to celebrate our successes. The actual goals you have in front of you tonight represent my commitment to help the district achieve the coherence plan and support our entire learning community through ensuring plans are in place for academic achievement and excellent communication both internally and externally. More importantly, I know that I need to be an empathetic leader who respects that COVID-19 is very personal. No matter what the circumstance, I always feel incredibly fortunate to be working for Franklin Public Schools, and I sincerely appreciate the leadership of this board. So at this time, I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have about the document I provided.
Any questions from board members?
I just want to say I appreciate your commitment to like hard data, 9%, 75%. You have set some real targets here, and that's can be scary, but you've done it, and I appreciate that.
Thank you. I have the help of my colleagues here in terms of collecting data, so I wouldn't be able to provide the data without the help of my colleagues, so.
Anyone else? Thank you very much. Item E, sale of property, Mr. Milzer.
As you know, the district owns a 21-acre parcel of land on Hilltop Lane, just west of 76th, north of Ryan, south of Putes. It was originally envisioned as an elementary school site, but with the purchase of the 227 acres of property on Ryan Road, with that having room for multiple schools, this site really isn't needed anymore for our future. And since we don't need the site, we'd like to sell the property. And to start the process, we'd like to get the board's approval to move forward with that. Obviously, we would come back with any offers that we receive for your consideration. But tonight, just looking for a motion to sell the approximately 21 acres on Hilltop Lane. Any questions on that?
Hearing no questions?
So the process is we approve you'd go forward, and then there'll be a sale, and then that's the only action required by the board. Those two things, two decision points, tonight and then the final sale.
Yes.
The final sale, but you'll come to us with offers that we'll discuss and then get to a final sale.
Right. The final sale wouldn't occur until you would approve accepting an offer.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Wachowski, second by Mr. Sprague. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item F, School Board Recognition Week. Dr. Miller.
Okay, well, me again. I'm proud to acknowledge that October 4th through October 10th was Wisconsin's School Board Week. And I'd like to take this opportunity to recognize the elected officials who are seated here before you, who commit their time to serve the citizens of Franklin and provide leadership of our Franklin Public Schools. The Franklin School Board is committed to our core values of equity, personal growth, innovation, stewardship, and well-being. And they support the decisions that make Franklin Public Schools a better place to learn, better place to work, and part of a better community. Your board understands their key work is to establish a clear vision and policies to support that vision, to hold high academic standards, and engage with the community. They are committed to listening and learning and making decisions that positively impact the future. On behalf of Franklin Public Schools and in recognition of that service, that's your cue. Please accept these small gifts as a token of our appreciation. The hand sanitizer. Not going to help because that's less people touching things. So thank you very much for your service.
Thank you.
You can open it if you'd like.
Mr. Gann, they're all the same, right?
Yes.
That looks delectable.
Oh, there's a lovely cupcake in here.
Yes. Our very own mask.
Okay, cool.
Oh, that'll come in
And
handy.
this year,
Quite popular.
yeah, Franklin cap. Keep your head warm.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
So you're not expecting a mild winter?
No.
Thank you very much. Item 11, school board liaison reports. Item A, policy, personnel and policy, policy number 1411, school district relationship with city law enforcement services. Ms. Larson.
Yes, thank you. We are, this policy is being brought before us because it was last reviewed in 2011. There have been no changes made to the policy language. The changes have been made to the administrative rules. They have been updated to include our current programs that we engage in with the Franklin Police Department. These rules now include language pertaining to the Franklin High School administration being involved with our city's attorney's office regarding municipal citations, and but not only truancy. The rules have been updated to include threats to school safety as a school offense. Language was clarified in the rules as to how students are questioned by police officers. And language was also added to the rules describing our partnership working with our school resource officer. And I am looking for a motion to approve these changes.
So moved.
We're not really approving changes, or really, because the administrative rules we don't have authority over, we're only.
Reconfirm.
Reconfirm, I'm sorry. Second? Okay.
Motion by Mr.
Thank
Sprague,
you.
second by Ms. Witkowski.
Is there some discussion? Good.
That's the next thing.
On page 2, this is kind of procedural, school offenses. It lists the 4, and then in parentheses, it says, these examples are not inclusive. Should that be not all inclusive?
Yeah, certainly we could add that. Mhm. Sure.
So we're not doing deer anymore?
No, not for, gosh, 4 or 5 years, maybe? It's been a while. Anybody remember?
I think it's, yeah, about 4 years.
Yeah,
Okay. And what's Adopt a School program?
I'm glad you asked. Adopt a School program is kind of, it's an officer that's assigned to each of our schools. The officer makes frequent contact with the schools and establishes a relationship with that school. They serve as the point of contact or liaison between the school and the police department. Specifically, how often they visit the school is kind of up to the school administrator and the officer. So that would be their day shift officers who take this on.
Have they been visiting schools this year?
I am unaware that they've done any of that this year.
Is there any compensation for the time they spend at our schools?
Not by the school district, no. I'm assuming that they're day shift officers, and this is built into their assignment as a police officer during the day.
That would be different than a school resource,
Correct,
where we do have a funding
correct,
agreement.
yes.
Not for Adopt a School.
Not for Adopt a School,
Okay, thank you.
yes.
Any other discussion? Would you want to amend your motion to include as modified?
I think the motion was to reconfirm.
It's to reconfirm.
Yeah, and it's in the rules, so I don't think it's necessarily necessary to amend the motion, because we're reconfirming the policy itself.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Next policy, 5331. We are seeing this policy because it was last revised in 2010. The language has been updated to reflect that suicide prevention is part of our health and SEL curriculum, which we just heard about. New language has been added to align with the DPI mandatory training language regarding symptoms of suicide. Language from the 2019 Wisconsin Act 115 has been added regarding the district's legal requirement to include the suicide prevention lifeline number on our student ID cards. This is a motion I'm looking to approve.
Yes.
Yes.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Witkowski. Is there a second by Mr. Alexandrowitz? Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Item C, school board liaison reports.
I did attend the SWSA meeting along with Judy, and they did have Children's Hospital, again, kind of on the line to share what they're seeing from their perspective. And I think it was noted that districts are doing a good job of managing the COVID-19 within the schools. They're not seeing a rise in emergency visits, and even, they also said there's less visits to clinics. And I think they thought it was really due to just, parents are better about keeping kids separate. All that was making a difference in what they're seeing. Although, you still have to look at the trends in Wisconsin are not encouraging. I think they offered one explanation, because I keep wondering too, how can this keep going up? But I think it might be, it's spreading across the state, because remember, it's a whole statewide number. Doesn't always happen the same in every location, but as people move around, it seems to be spreading geographically. They also talked about, some of the questions asked was about the mental health aspects of what this means, especially for high schoolers where they're missing out on events that they haven't had before. Then you can't replace them, but you can do them differently. I think they were suggesting that, and they are aware of it, and there's also a resource that they offered to make available. And then the second part of the meeting was interviewing one of the candidates for the new school superintendent. So, and I can share that slide deck with you if you'd like, and that way you can take a look at what was going on. Did I miss anything else?
Yeah, that's great. There's good notes in the slide deck. So the candidate that we heard was Jill Underly, and she's from Pecatonica School District. And so, how do you say it?
Pecatonica.
Thank you.
Isn't there a river named that as well?
Probably.
I'll have
Yeah.
to phone a friend on that
Yeah,
one.
I don't know.
But the town is on it.
She spoke for a pretty long period of time, had a lot to share. It's an important decision for us, so, and the slides have a lot of information, so
Okay.
that would be good to send that along.
All right. I think the links will work, right? If I just forward the email? Okay. Yeah. It's easy to flip through the slides, so.
Any other liaison reports? Okay. Item D, school and community engagement reports. Kind of hard to get those done in COVID right now?
I went ahead of time, I guess. I was just so excited to get to report something from my school, so I apologize that I went early.
Did you visit or did you call?
No, I just get to talk with Mr. Feckler, that's all.
Okay.
Okay.
I wanted to give the new principal at Country a couple weeks to settle in before. They should be gone in 2 weeks,
Yeah,
right?
she'll be gone beginning in November.
I did have a fascinating Zoom meeting with the new interim principal for Ben Franklin.
Oh, nice.
That was very good. No other discussion? All right, item 12, school board meeting debriefing. Any member comments? Hearing
Yes,
none?
I think the mental health efforts that we're seeing is just outstanding. It's-
Yes.
Mhm. It's really, the approach and the thoughtfulness is it's amazing.
Anyone else? Okay. Item 13, future agenda items. We We have the Community and Recreation Department report, October 28th. The annual health report, October 28th. The 2020-21 budget approval, October 28th. Debt refinancing, October 28th. Principal action plan update, Franklin High School, November 11th. Early college credit and Start College Now request approvals, October 11th.
November?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
November 11th. New course approvals, November 11th. Enrollment and staffing report, November 11th. 2021-22 school calendar, November 11th.
If we
And-
want to add something as a future agenda item, is this where we would do that? Or we just talk to you outside the meeting? I'm
Could bring it
to
up.
Judy as far as.
The future agenda
I
item?
think during this point, you could suggest that there be an item added, and then the rest of the board would have to agree to add that item to as a future agenda item. But yeah, I think this would be a point in the meeting where you could definitely bring that up.
Okay. As part of our budget review, there were a number of questions brought forward, and one of the responses was that information requested would be required board discussion and approval. And I would like to bring that forward as far as the information provided in the budget and then also our review process as a discussion item.
So for example, revising the review process,
Consider, yes,
the budget, okay.
possible. And also some additional information or look at the budget as it's currently presented to us.
I think it's a good idea to have that as an agenda item looking forward to the budget for next year, which won't be for a while. So it'd be good to talk about it at that meeting when we're talking about the budget. Or possibly on the 11th, I don't know which is better.
It doesn't really, either way would be okay, I think. Do we have to, are we all okay? Is that
I
kind of
think
the consensus?
you want to make a motion and then have someone second that, and then the board can approve and identify like what that agenda item would be entitled, so that we're clear on that and it gets where it needs to be.
Sure, I'd like to make a motion that we, the board, in an agenda item, discuss the board information, budget information presented, and also the process of review.
So how the budget information is presented? Or, because I just wrote, to discuss the budget information, or how the information's presented. I just want to be clear.
Budget information presented. I'm not, I don't want to, it's a discussion item, it's an agenda item. I don't think I have to nail down every aspect of what we talk about, I guess. I mean, we haven't approved these other agenda items that we
Right,
currently
right.
have on the list, so.
I just, with all due respect, I just want to be clear, like, is the agenda item to discuss the information that's in the budget or currently? Because that will help us know, Mr. Gamble and I, when to put it on an agenda, like,
Both.
okay.
So to discuss the budget information provided for this upcoming budget.
Well, we're bringing that budget on
Yeah.
the 28th, so that's in 2 weeks, so
Right.
I
Be the
don't,
21-22 budget.
Right.
okay, that
Okay.
helps. So could you read back the motion, please, so we're clear?
So I've got motion to add a future agenda item, that the board discuss current budget information, how the budget information is presented, and the process of the budget review. Does that sound correct?
It's just the first part, like current budget information. I think it's the second two is what
Okay,
you're
so
more,
take-
but I don't want to take it out. Ms. Witkowski has to vet
Okay.
that. She has to, read it one more time,
Okay.
please.
So a motion to add a future agenda item, that the board discuss current budget information, how the budget information is presented, and the process of budget review.
I guess I don't know, Judy, what you mean by how the budget's presented. You suggested that one, so I'm unclear on what you were thinking, and I guess you're unclear what I was thinking.
Okay.
But it's the packet of information that we currently have at the board's disposal to review the budget.
Okay.
That packet of information, what it is, how it's formatted, just that document.
So you want to review the format of the budget document?
I want it broader than that. I want the elements of information that we have at our disposal to make judgments about what is in the budget.
I'm not, yeah, you want to read that back so
Yeah.
the board knows what they're voting?
You don't need, that was more of explanation than it was direction.
Okay.
I'm just trying to get a topic here. Aren't we just getting a topic, not, I don't know what you're trying to do in terms of nailing down something.
Well, does the board understand what the discussion is about? What it would be about? Is it about?
I do.
Okay, could,
I just would like to hear what Lisa typed again,
Yeah.
please. if
Okay,
that's
so-
Okay, I'm sorry.
Motion to add a future agenda item to discuss the elements of information that the board has at its disposal to make judgments about the budget.
That's not what I wanted as a title. I don't want that on the agenda item.
Okay,
That was an explanation. It
but
was-
that's the motion, right?
no, no.
Motion, what you read before,
Okay,
without the, and how it's presented, is really what my motion was.
So I think it was 1 and 3, if you
Okay.
still retain that.
Yep.
Okay, want to read it one more time, and then the
Okay.
board can vote.
so there's a motion to add a future agenda item that the board discuss current budget information and the process of the budget review.
I guess current might confuse people because you might want to say, well, which budget, when we did here. Just
Do you want to specify the 20?
budget information, the
Just
future
budget
budget,
inf-
you know.
okay.
We do this every year, so the information we get for the budget every year is, can we look at that and make some revisions?
Okay, so motion to add future agenda item that the board discuss budget information and the process of budget review.
Satisfied with
Yep.
that?
Is that your?
That works.
Okay.
Works for me. I
All
don't know,
right.
does it work for other board members?
I think that's clear. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Sprague. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Do you have in mind a timeline for that, so Mr. Gamble and I can consider where to place that?
Well, I think November, the budget just wrapped up, it's fresh in our minds, so I think following that would be probably a great time to talk about it.
We have one meeting in November and one in December, so if we can't get in November, would December be okay?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
And item 14, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Witkowski, second.
Second.
Ms. Larson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned at 7:35.